So far away, Lucas. What are we talking about today?
Going to talk about a gun and a chainsaw?
Yes, the Mark II Lancer. So far away, Lucas, who is far away because he couldn't be arsed travelling through Sheffield, which, you know what? Respect and big mood right there. What are we talking about today on this episode of Narrative Nibbles?
We are going to be just looking into the backstory and the lore of the Lancer.
There's probably people at home thinking, wait a minute, you're going to do an episode covering the backstory of a gun. So I should explain that the Gears of War universe is actually pretty expansive and really well written, which might be surprising to people considering that the Gears of War games have the reputation of being like big meathead shooters, where you run around as guys the size of a fridge with a chainsaw gun.
Yeah, I was going to say, literally the meme is just your fridges with guns, isn't it?
But the universe itself is very interesting, as we're about to discover when we talk about the Mark II Lancer. But before that, Lucas, what do you think of the Mark II Lancer, aka the gun with a chainsaw on it?
Realistically, it's one of the best weapons invented in the past 20 years of video games.
I can't think of a default weapon in a shooter game that is more satisfying to use. There are obviously weapons that are more satisfying, but the default weapon you start with in every combat encounter in Gears of War is one of the most fun ones to use.
They gave us a button to rev the chainsaw while you're holding it.
For no other reason than fuck you, I want to rev my chainsaw.
And it feels so good to do.
It does. There was never a time I was not doing that just as a flex. But, Lucas, would you like to hear about the Mark II Lancer right now?
Hell yeah.
Okay, so the Mark II Lancer Assault Rifle was an upgrade to the Mark I Lancer. I could have gathered that. Produced with a chainsaw bayonet, which has its own wiki entry.
Oh, God.
Increased accuracy, lower recoil, and a larger ammunition carrying capacity, but less firepower compared to its predecessor. When the gun with a chainsaw on it has less firepower than the one before, like, what the fuck were they firing before?
I presume the Mark I would be what they call the Retro Lancer in Gears of War 3. And that's just a big old assault rifle that shoots meaty bullets, and you just got a giant machete on the end.
And you've got a roadie run to kill people with it. It says here, designed by Professor Adam Jonathan Phoenix. That's all about Marcus Phoenix's dad is a professor, but he has the exact same body type.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So it's just Mark, this huge buff man in a lab coat being like, yes. He looks like a porn parody when he's on screen. It says here, during the first years of the Locust War, the second generation Lancer soon became the staple weapon of Gears across Sarah and the official workhorse of the COG. In 42 AE, the Mark II was replaced as a standard issue rifle of the COG army by the Mark III. I don't care if there's a Mark. You can fuck off with the Mark III. It's the Mark II, baby.
I don't particularly like it as a gun. I like it because it's got the chainsaw on it, which was probably a lot of people's answer, but
yep.
I'm more of a roll and shotgunner type Gears of War player. But
you're one of them knobheads, aren't you? Roadie run and shotgun.
Man, bring back crab walking. That's all I'm asked about.
I remember the first time I booted up Gears of War multiplayer, and it was just like a General Ram just fucking squat walking towards me at 1,000 miles an hour and just blew me in half with a shotgun. And I was like, how did this army lose if they've got that guy in charge? So Lucas, we have here, history. The Mark II Lancer Assault Rifle was the coalition of ordered government's current standard issue rifle for Gears fighting on the front lines. The signature weapon of the COG, the Lancer possessed a fully automatic mode of fire, which doesn't matter because it also has a chainsaw bayonet attachment for melee combat, despite the fact the chainsaw was originally for utility purposes. And that's the part of the Lancer's backstory I really love, where the chainsaw was a standard issue piece of equipment for Gears to get through like undergrowth and brush and things like that. Before that, they just had the retro bayonet and they had like just the chainsaw as like a thing on their like waist that they'd use for specific scenarios. And it says here that, despite the existence of a Locust Horde counterpart to a Lancer, the Hammerburst assault rifle, Locusts have been known to use the Lancer. For example, Theron guards and drones have been seen using the Lancer against COG Gears, and the Cyclops variation were exclusively armed with the Lancer. These Cyclops had a particular tendency to use the chainsaw bayonet, which resulted in like a gameplay addition in Gears of War 2. It's like the best shit ever, which is the chainsaw duels. Because so many people in Gears of War 1's multiplayer, like me, will just hide around corners with the chainsaw and just chainsaw people. But if two people ran at each other with their chainsaw, it was basically just like a coin flip who won, wasn't it? But in Gears of War 2, because people were getting pissed off with that, of like, well, it's just random who wins. Like, fuck it, whoever mashes harder wins in this one. And I'm really good at mashing, so I always won those. And people got so fucking mad. You just run towards them with the chainsaw, and there's nothing they can do.
you see people having a chainsaw duel and you just stand there with your shotgun waiting for one to, like, kill the other.
No, I just walked in with my chainsaw, and as soon as they finish a chainsaw them, and when you have, like, just the daisy chain of chainsaw in, the daisy chainsaw, if you will. Well, here, Lucas, and this is why I wanted to cover this particular entry today. The idea of changing the original Lancer into the chainsaw bayonet Lancer was the product of Marcus and Adam Phoenix, and inspired by a desperate combat maneuver performed by Ty Kelso. And are you familiar with this desperate combat maneuver, Lucas?
I don't think I am.
So 1 year after Emergence Day, during the Battle of Janamont, like Marcus, many gears were complaining that the original bayonet blade did not work well on Locust armor or their thick hide. Marcus informed his father about it failing in its design, and soon after, Adam produced a prototype Lancer with a chainsaw bayonet. And do you know what that inspiration was? It was like Ty Kelso, it was in the games, like that huge fucking Maori dude.
Yeah.
Just getting attacked by a locust, and he just picked up a chainsaw and cut it in half, and Marcus was like, that's sick. That's so rad. Let's get that. It says here that the addition of the chainsaw made it easier to slice through the locust thick hides. Yeah.
That'll help.
It's a fucking chainsaw. The design did, however, require a redesign of the internals of the rifle to accommodate the chainsaws. You know what, though? I think all the soldiers are like, well, we need to redesign the gun a little bit, which is going to affect its weight, but we will put a chainsaw on it. It's like, sick, get it done. And Lucas, there's an entire section on executions with the chainsaw bayonet.
Perfect.
And
Gives
for you,
us a
Lucas,
chance to put some clips in.
there is a chance to put some clips, but what is your favourite execution in Gears of War, and why is it the one with the sniper rifle?
What, the golf swing?
No, not the golf swing, the one where you put it all the way over your head and do the full top-down swing. Because I contend that's one of the best execution animations in anything, because it's just the full with the sniper rifle.
I still think my favourite's got to probably be the one where they just rip the arm off the body and beat you to death with your own arm.
That's a good one, because you can mash it for as long as you want. And I can't tell you the amount of times I got killed because someone walked up and just shotgunned me as I was doing that. And you know what? It was worth it every single time. It says here, though, in Gears of War, the Lancer had only one animation for using its chainsaw bayonet. However, in Gears of War 2, there are two animations, depending on what direction the player approaches their target from. Which I liked in Gears of War when it means the person turns around. So they have that split second to hear the chainsaw going off and then turn around and spot it. They have one here, it's like when the character comes up to the enemy from behind, he will throw his Lancer up in the air at the same time, flipping it over and catching it. And I reckon that might be one of the scariest things ever for a person to attempt to do. So they say, don't play with a gun. Because if you drop a gun, don't try and catch it, because so many people shoot themselves in the balls by trying to catch guns they drop on the floor. Because it's one of those things that movies and TV shows consistently lie about. And that is that when a gun is dropped, it can accidentally go off. And guns don't do that, because if they did, they would not sell them. They would not sell guns that randomly went off when they dropped on the floor.
No, you need to pull the trigger.
Yes, and they are specifically designed not to go off unless the trigger is pulled, because that's a bad idea. And all those movies of people dropping guns and they go off and shoot people, it happens in Hot Fuzz, doesn't it? He throws the shotgun and it blows the guy's foot, and that's not how guns work. And one of the ways a lot of people accidentally shoot themselves is by trying to catch guns that they drop in midair while trying to show off. But also at the same time, the gun has a chainsaw on it. So where do you put your hands? It says here that while it's upside down, the character will then run the bayonet through the enemy from their crotch to their abdomen.
Oh, God.
Why is he going to go balls first? And it says here that they will then flip the Lancer over in victory. So they do the double flip. And it says that in Gears of War 4 and 3, there's a unique execution where you kick the person over and then just execute them with it covering the screen in blood. And then, Lucas, would you like to have some behind-the-scenes trivia? Because there's a lot.
I'd love to, yeah.
Okay, so the Mark II Lancer appears as a usable weapon in the video game prequel, Gears of War Judgment, despite it not being implemented until a year later in the lore. And do you know what that says to me?
That the people doing Judgment didn't think it through.
Also, as well, that they realised how limited that universe's weapon pool is, because almost every weapon that's not the Lancer, the sniper rifle, or the shotgun is no fun to use.
There's a couple, like the torque bow's awesome.
The torque bow is great, but it's just not as satisfying to use as the sniper rifle, because there's nothing more satisfying in Gears of War than getting that headshot with a sniper rifle, unless it's with a taut bow and you get the double headshot. And people wondering like the exact nature of this continuity error, the Mark II Lancer's chainsaw bayonet was inspired by Ty Kelso's improvisation of a powered sword during the Battle of Janamont 1 year after Emergence Day. However, Gears of War Judgment takes place a mere 2 months after Emergence Day, and the Mark II Lancer is seen in mainstream use, even though it literally has not been invented yet. It says here that the Gears of War 2 Lancer seems to have its chainsaw pushed back further inside the gun, shortening the grip for the weapon. The grip is too small for the hands of the character to go through, so their fingers pass through part of the chainsaw. Do you know what that is? Is that like the Assassin's Creed Hidden Blade?
Wait, what?
Do you know what Altair has to use it? Do you not know about the Assassin's Creed Hidden Blade?
I don't think so.
If you look at your character model in the first Assassin's Creed, they have the middle finger missing. Because in Assassin's Creed 1, the sign of the assassins have your middle finger cut off and the assassin's blade goes through that.
Oh, okay.
And that's a design flaw they fixed by Assassin's Creed 2 when it comes out of your wrist. And I always hated that change because I much preferred the idea of the person having to lose their finger and then the blade comes out of their fist. 1, that looks cooler, and 2, it makes more sense from like a mechanics standpoint of you are basically holding a knife in your hand and just protruding it through your fist. Mm-hmm. Whereas when it comes out of your wrist, that seems a lot weaker in a sense. Because like, you know, just like having something attached to your wrist and pushing upwards with it doesn't seem as secure as having like your hand gripped all the way around it. So with the purchase of a limited edition version of some games, the players can receive an all-gold Lancer for online play, which just means you're easier to shoot. Mm-hmm. Like pro strat in a game where anything that's not brown is immediately shot. Because those games, like until like the 3rd or 4th one, get like they're pretty like dark and just boring and dour in their colour scheme. So when you see something with like a solid gold in the distance, you just know to shoot it on command. In Gears of War 2 limited edition bonus disc, it is mentioned in a documentary that Cliff Bleszinski wanted to add a chainsaw to a gun ever since he was a little kid. When he put this idea out for Gears of War, several art designers, such as the senior concept artist James Hawkins, didn't like the idea. Fire that man.
Well, this is why Cliff Bleszinski's like retired with a bunch of money now, innit?
Yeah, I'm going to be retired as a billionaire. You know what? Fuckers didn't listen. Chainsaws on guns. The Lancer had its ammo capacity upgraded in Gears of War. The maximum was 660 rounds with a 60-round mag. It was downgraded to 550 with a 50-round mag in the next game. I hate shit like that. It ruins the universe of like, wait, what? The design and function of the Lancer's chainsaw bayonet drew the attention of Games Workshop, owners of the Warhammer 40,000. Do you know what that is, Lucas?
Nah, never heard of it.
Yeah, maybe we should cover that on a video one day. Anyway, it says here that due to its strong resemblance to the chainsaws from 40k, as well as the chain bayonets found in the tabletop games expanded lore, this briefly locked them and Epic Games in a copyright lawsuit. There was an easy way to solve that. 1v1.
Just chainsaw duels, man.
Yeah, chainsaw duels 1v1 in court. Whoever wants it more wins. And Lucas, there is like a picture of the blueprints here down in the trivia section, so maybe you can put a picture of that behind us if you do the edit for this one. So it does show you how it works. And the chainsaw, oh my god, it's like 2 inches away from your fingers. It's like the chainsaw's like inside the gun. Since its appearance in the original Gears of War, the Lancer has lacked a crucial part of a functional firearm, the ejection port. When fired in game, the spent rounds just appear to shoot out the sides of the rifle. It's the future, innit? It's the future, and it's a gun with a chainsaw, and people are arguing, that's not realistic. Really? The chainsaw attached to the front never gave that away. Yeah, and it says here that in Gears of War 4, this has been rectified, and all 3 Lancer variants have ambidextrous ejection ports. But I love the idea that some weird gun nerd out there complained about that. It's like, it also has a chainsaw on it, which isn't realistic, but I don't see you complaining about that.
No, because that shit's awesome, Carl.
It's fucking rad.